Hello, BookTube. For a time, there was peace in the world. And that peace was built on the same thing that all great peaces are built on: benevolent American superiority in all things. Some of you may have been observing the macabre spectacle of the arms race that's going on in the ranks of the OGBG, the Old Geezers book group, where first Mark Richardson would go out on one of his weekend jaunts to up there in Vermont and come back with a Gutenberg Bible that he got for $2.50. And then Jason Harrigan would get in his car and go all around filling its boot with books. And then recently, Todd Ophel from Todd's Bursting Bookcase, who had been out of the arms race completely because he was totally involved with work and retraining in order to pursue his dream of interpretive dance. He got back in the action yesterday with a book haul of his own. And as if that weren't bad enough, Jason Harrigan of Byways in Bookland then flagrantly broke the peace. As he put it, he shaved his head as befits a proper warrior monk and went out book hunting for used books. Considering the sheer acreage of the head involved, you'd think the shaving of it would left him too tired to do anything else. But no, he got in his car specifically to invade the Sudetenland, specifically to destroy the fragile peace that had existed among the ranks of the OGBG. I could not let this go unanswered. BookTube. So first I watched and liked and very much enjoyed his book haul, because this is a wimpy kind of all-out total scorched earth warfare, and I will leave a link to it down below because he had some really good finds. And then I donned my battle gear and went out myself for a purely retributive book haul, and a book haul designed to restore American hegemony, an Enola Gay style book haul. I went to the Brattle Bookshop. I confess I had to be down in that area anyway, but nevertheless, I shopped once again with rage in my heart. And I found a bunch of great books that I want to show you. So since at least there should be some beneficiaries from this grotesque, bookish Cold War, this arms race that's heating up in the ranks of the OGBG. So the first thing that we'll look at is a specific, we'll say nod rather than taunt. We'll say a specific nod to Jason at Byways in Bookland, because it's a book entirely about something that he was talking about just the other day. This is by Mark Popek, and it's called Forgotten Bookmarks, a bookseller's collection of the odd things that he finds in the pages of books over the years. Jason pointed out in his video, which is something that is true of Sean D. Standfast, it's true of Mark Richardson, it's true of Todd Ophel, it's even true of yours truly. He pointed out that probably tens of thousands of books have passed through his hands in his lifetime. And you naturally find things in those books. And he was telling stories about how he's found a whole flotilla of things in books, including a large number of racy photographs of old Polaroids. Racy Polaroids that people would put in books and either forget about or very much not forget about. And this book is entirely that. It is entirely stuff that is found in books that the author has found. Lots of pictures, not only of the books, but of the things that he found inside them. I am once again dealing with the mother of all glare. I don't know how to fix that. That's it. That's better. Okay, you don't really need to see me. You need to see the books. This has just everything. Photographs, receipts, recipes, bills, everything. And he examines them. He breaks them down by the type of object and examines them throughout the course of this book. It's going to take me half an hour to go through here, but it's going to be absolutely fascinating, as I think it would be to anybody who has found stuff in books. I have found lots and lots of stuff in books, and I wonder how familiar a lot of this will be. I think it's great that he includes the books as well, that he includes what they look like. The whole thing is just going to be a bookish treat. That's all. And also, if it's a little bit of a goad to Nikita Khrushchev over there in the west coast of Ireland, so much the better. Then I found a couple of great anthologies. And when I say that, Mark Richardson's ears perk up because he's thinking, okay, it's been about a month since he mentions that Brattle has got a swamp of new science fiction anthologies. He hasn't shown a single one of them. Maybe now he will. No, not so much. I have lots of science fiction anthologies. No, instead, I found a couple of great anthologies, just epic anthologies on their own that I have had I have read them and enjoyed them many times, and I saw them at the Brattle and realized I didn't have them, and they fall under the category of the type of anthology that is so good, just in itself, as its own creation, that you want it irrespective of what the actual contents are, because the mixture, the combination of the contents are so great that the thing becomes a work of art on its own. I'm probably not explaining that really well, but I'm thinking of something like the Oxford Book of English Verse, or actually in his book haul today, his ICBM book haul, Jason holds up another example it'd be a foremost example of what I'm talking about, the Oxford Book of Ghost Stories, of English Ghost Stories, which is up on that shelf in this room, and which is tremendously good. Not just because you're thinking, oh, I'm glad you included that, oh, I'm glad you included that, but because it has its own shape, it has its own voice and identity as an anthology. That's terrific. I love it when that happens. And I found 2 prime examples of that I always give away. So I'm hoping I hold on to them this time. First one is Library of America. Another bit of explicit competition, because Jason also hauled a Library of America volume. His was the normal black dust jacket with the red, white, and blue line across the spine of Willa Cather, the great novels of Willa Cather. Mine is a Library of America volume, but it's an anthology, not just one author, and it's one of those rare Library of America volumes where they diverge from that standard black dust jacket look. This is the anthology of American sea writing. And you've got this thin, semi-transparent cover over a naked cover of a sea log, an illustrated sea log. And this is a fantastic volume. Has everything you could ever want in it, and every type of writer that you could want in it too. A lot of the names are known to me. Probably a lot more of them would be known to Mark Richardson. And I have had this volume I got it when it first came out. I was in a when was that? This was a long time ago, 20, 30 years ago. This has all sorts of things in it. This came out in 2000, the year 2000, so 20 years ago. And I was in some sort of book club for the Library of America at the time, and this was a featured thing, so I got it. But I've also found it used many times, and I always give it away, because it's a pretty volume, and it's also a great anthology in its own right. Perhaps the greatest anthology of American sea writing that's ever been done. And if there's a perhaps about that, there's no perhaps about the next one. This next anthology is the best anthology of its kind on its subject matter. And it's the brainchild was largely assembled by Philip Lopate, who also did another anthology like the kind I'm talking about. The Art of the Personal Essay is an anthology by Philip Lopate of essays over the centuries, and it's incredible. It's a perfect example of the kind of anthology I'm talking about. So this guy's got a charm touch for these things, because this is his Writing New York. Just a big, generous volume of writings about New York, diaries, political journals, immigrant journals, artistic, literary journals, the nightlife, all that sort of stuff. It's amazing as an anthology, an amazing world of its own. And again, it very much shows the shaping of a personal artistic vision, as poncy as that sounds. This is an anthology that has a life, an artistic being of its own. And I love anthologies like that. Just love them. And I have had this many times, and many times given it away. Like the American Sea Writing volume, you can see right away when you think about it that some recipients for books like these will be easy to pick. And so I've given them away. I've also recommended them as gifts to many, many people. I've had people say to me, we're from, I don't even know. We're coming into New England from the Midwest. We have friends who live in a brown house in New York. We're going to stay with them for a week. They've got an enormous amount of space. They've got a great view. I want to give them kind of a present. Can you think of a book that they might like? And it was always this. All I had to do was take a guess that they didn't already have it. And I have had this many times, but I didn't. As soon as I saw it today, I realized I don't have it now, and it's going in this room. So I'm not going to get rid of it again. So it was 2 great anthologies. Then we have translation. This was from a few years ago. I got this from the publisher when it first came out. This was from 2012. And I read it, thought it was very impressive, and I got rid of the advanced copy because I didn't want it. I wanted the full bells and whistles finished copy. And then I got rid of the finished copy. I sent it to somebody. I think it was an aficionado of the subject. This is a translation by Simon Armitage of The Death of King Arthur. And I think I sent my original hardcover of this, the one that I got from the publisher, to a King Arthur fan, to someone who was a much bigger King Arthur fan than I am. This is a very old poem. It's not Le Mort d'Arthur. I know it looks. You might think this is just a totally Englished up translation of Malory, but it's not. Malory was actually familiar with this poem. He knew it quite well. It's a very strange, alliterative old poem about the world of King Arthur that takes a lot from even older stuff and makes up a lot. You very much get we don't know who wrote it, but you very much get the impression when you read this poem. I read it lovingly when it first came out. I don't know if I reviewed it or not, but you very much get the impression when you're reading this that you don't get with a lot of thousand-year-old, especially, Anglo-Saxon poems. You very much get the impression that one person wrote this. And it's delightful. You almost, I mean, when I first read this Armitage translation is pretty good. And it doesn't need to be all that good because the edition is bilingual. So you can just read it in the original if you want to. But I was halfway through the first reading of this thing. I'd only read the Penguin Classic of The Death of King Arthur, which wasn't anywhere near as good, nowhere near as evocative or intelligently done. Although the critical apparatus for it was great. I think if the guy was named was Jones. We may have seen it on our Daily Penguin. But I was no more than halfway through this Armitage version when finally I'd had enough of these dropped hints of one distinct personality behind the writing of this poem that I think I said out loud, could you please introduce yourself? I want to know you. You're very much present in the crafting of this poem. Why aren't... Of course, we don't know, and we never will know, but as soon as I saw this, I remembered, I had one of those moments where I remembered, oh my, no, you got rid of the advanced copy and you actually gave away your finished copy and you want this. I definitely want this. This is a terrific translation. It's a difficult thing to do, too. It's good that they have the facing page so you can sort of see what the original is because it's a brave and an honest translator who will do that because you can immediately see the liberties. Unlike, for instance, with a totally foreign language, where if there were facing page for Latin or French or whatever, if you didn't know that language, you'd have no idea what liberties are being taken. But here you can tell. Here you can see all of the choices that Armitage is making. And it's tough to do, because the original poem was very much in a drinking hall kind of rhythm. It was very much in a rhythm that we just don't write in anymore. It was every line was split. Not necessarily exactly halfway, but for a breath. And each of those two halves had a stress, had two stresses. So it was dun, 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 dun. Something like that. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. And on top of that, it's intensely alliterative. All throughout. And the alliteration doesn't always fall on the stresses. And it doesn't always help the line along. And sometimes it does weird things on its own. It's extremely difficult to convey any sense of that in modern English. Which is why I love the fact that you can just look at it and let your mind wander on its own. And mine did many times. I'll be happy to reread this. And keep it. Since the pandemic has given me a sort of a flimsy excuse to be really, really careful about what I mail out. I'm not going to the post office every day anymore like I was once upon a time. And when you're not going to the post office every day, when you're worried, I mean, it's not just a flimsy excuse. I am worried about post office employees who have to be there. They've got, a weekly paycheck and benefits, whatnot, that they have to safeguard. And I'm not really worried about myself because they've instituted all the safeguards you could possibly want at the post office. The one that I go to most often, the clerk has a drawer that they hand out to you. You never come anywhere near touching them. They have a plexiglass to protect them. They have a table in front of the counter so that you can't even get that close. It's as safe as it can be. Even so, the pandemic has given me an excuse to not be at the post office every single day, and that's great because that led to me getting rid of a lot of books that I might want to keep. It doesn't matter anyway. I'm also going to get a little bit better at simply saying I will find you a copy. I want to keep this because I'm going to reread it and I'm going to love it. I'm sure that I am. And then those of you who have been watching my recent spat of Missile Gap book war type videos at the Brattle, I'm at a disadvantage over virtually all the rest of the OGBG. I mean, Jason and I have a slight advantage over Todd and Mark. I'm sure that when Mark is watching these videos of these two Irishmen fighting, making a war out of anything, I'm sure that when he's in his office watching YouTube on his lunch break, he's probably muttering to himself and thinking, don't these guys have anything to do? Don't they have a job? He'll make up for it the next time he goes book hunting. But nevertheless, I'm at a disadvantage because I don't have a car. I don't want to go traipsing all over creation for books, only for books. If I had an errand to run somewhere where there were books, that would be different. But I'm not going to go traipsing all over creation in the middle of a pandemic, leaving Frida behind in order to get books. The Brattle happened to be in a foldable kind of pile of errands. But nevertheless, those of you who have been watching these videos of mine, these retributive, we will bury you book hauls of mine. If you hear the Brattle, you're probably thinking of one particular person at the Brattle, one particular figure who's taken on a life of his own. And that is, of course, the Tabby Cat. The Brattle got this shipment of books dealing with the colonial era America and with the American Revolution. A great library, a huge number of them, and a large number of the books, they all must have come from the same person, and a large number of the books have this manic tagging that this guy did, where he put tabs all throughout the books, in such a profusion as to be completely useless, and probably forgot about it, because a lot of these tabs are very old, faded, curled. So if these books had been in active use with that kind of a tabbing system, that'd be one thing, but I don't think they were. I think this person did this probably involuntarily and then just compulsively and then died. But one way or another, it's given me a chance. I will patiently take these tags out, and it's given me a chance to build up the section of my history shelves on colonial America and the American Revolution, and that's terrific. One of these is it's by W.J. Wood. It's Battles of the American Revolution. It's a trade paperback, and I've had this many, many times. And it's one of those history books that you find yourself going to. It's not particularly well written. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be a kind of a military history overview. It's a little bit dry, but very informative on every major battle and minor battle in the American Revolution. And when I didn't have the internet, I would go back to this thing often to consult with it, because the author is concise. He has a very clean prose style. I like that a lot. And this was $1, so I grabbed it. Of course, I'll want it back again. And this next one is also by a military historian, but dry and unreadable. Do not attach to this figure. This is a great writer, a fantastic military historian. Someone, if you're in the least bit interested in history or military history, and you haven't read this person, you absolutely should. This is Robert Leckie, and this is his book, A Few Acres of Snow, which is his book about the French and Indian Wars. So King William's War, Queen Anne's War, King George's War, and then the 7 Years' War. All of the battles between Great Britain or England and France in the New World that comprise the French and Indian Wars. And Leckie is incredible. His books on America's wars. There's one called George Washington's War. There's one called, I think, None Died in Vain is his American Civil War book. But all of his books, he is an author to find and read. He is incredible. Absolutely incredible. As a military historian, he has almost no rival in the annals of American history. And that's amazing. That's saying something. And this is familiar ground to me, very much so. This is very familiar ground to me because Francis Parkman, I know Francis Parkman really well. really, really well. And I know I have read lovingly most of the epic 19th century authors who wrote on this subject. So, and yet I don't think I have ever read this book. As much a fan as I am of this author, I don't think I've ever read this book. So I've certainly not read all of it. Unless maybe the hardcover looked completely different from the trade paperback. Maybe I never saw the trade paperback. Am I blurred on here? No, I am not blurred on here. One way or another, it doesn't matter. I strongly recommend this author. He's amazing. And so those are two from the Tabby Cat, and they will just go with all of his other books. I just am cleaning these things out and putting them on the shelf altogether. And that's great. Fantastic. And then, of course, because it's a Brattle trip, we have to have a biography. I believe this biography is a slight step back for me in terms of military aggression, because I believe that Jason just hauled it the other day, unless I'm mistaken about the author. I like the book. I've had it before. And, of course, I love the subject matter. This is a biography of Samuel Pepys by Richard Allard. I've had this biography before, and I know Pepys' diary inside and out. I know his life inside and out. But when I saw this, I realized I didn't have it. And I actually prefer this to Claire Tomalin's book, so this will probably be my Pepys biography. I tend, when it comes to wanting to read Pepys, I tend to go either to Arthur Bryant or to Pepys himself, and not bother with later biographers. But in this case, I'll make an exception. I'll gladly reread this, especially if that is the Pepys biography that Jason just recently hauled, in which case I'm duty-bound to read it. And then we have, in terms of another biography, this is just a tiny, tiny little thing. It was only $1, so it was basically no money, and I got it just for that reason. This is The Great Eudora Welty. This is One Writer's Beginnings. In a tiny little mass-market paperback. Is this Mariner? Warner. This is Warner. A tiny little mass-market paperback of, look at that. You can't see anything. That's how bad the glare is. You can't see anything. Of One Writer's Beginnings. Which is just a very affectionate autobiography of her early years. And when I was at the Brattle today, I saw no fewer than 3 copies of this in different formats. This little mass-market paperback was I had this mass-market paperback forever and ever. And I got this one just because it was $1 and I can stick it in a pocket in my bag and not even think about it. But one of the main reasons I got it is because there's a very nice new reprint of One Writer's Beginnings that's coming out. I believe I'm on the list for a finished copy, and can't wait to give it a reread. And I'm sure that will put the bug, it will give me the bug, but I'm not sure that I will want a big elaborate reprint to keep. I like this book, but I don't love it. So I'll be happy to reread it. And I'll reread this sort of to lay the groundwork for that new reprint. It'd take no time at all to do. But I'm thinking this will probably be the volume that I want to keep, that I can just stick in the biography shelf somewhere without it taking up a whole lot of room. And then the last thing that I got is something that I've had many times before. I believe I've shown it on this channel before. I always manage to get rid of it. I always manage to find somebody who wants a copy. But I love it. It touches on 2 of my pet subjects, the Victorians and country houses. Because this is Mark Giroud's book, The Victorian Country House. An oversized thing that concentrates on the Victorian era in his interpretation of English country houses, which the Life of English Country Houses is his great book on the subject, in which he puts forward a view of country houses that made a lot of people think. It certainly made me think. A view of country houses that has them as centers of power, rather than just refuges or fortresses of solitude or follies of the immensely wealthy. He put forward that these things were often places where deals were done, places where political alliances were forged outside the glare of London. And that was fascinating. It was fascinating to read that. It was fascinating to look at country houses in light of that. And that other country house volume of his I have here in this room. I love it. I go back to it a lot. And it spans centuries. This concentrates just on the Victorian era, when the heyday of the English country house was really at its brightest, as we've seen, right, in the novels of Anthony Trollope. And I have read this many times, but I don't have a copy at the moment, unless I'm wrong about that, but I don't think I am. The minute I saw it, I realized, no, you have his great book, but you don't have this. And this thing is beautifully illustrated all throughout, in color and black and white. So I want it anyway, and I'll definitely want to reread it, because I have a love affair with English country houses. And there you go. That was my latest installment in this bookish war that is going on in the ranks of the OGBG. This is my response to Jason's ICBM book haul. Although in his ICBM book haul, which was a flagrant act of violence, he goes one further, as they always do in the west of Ireland, and says that he has enough books to make another book haul as well. So I'm not really ahead here, because he can retaliate at any time. What I need is some sort of preventative book haul. a kind of Star Wars book haul. I don't know how that would happen. The only thing that would make that possible is if I went to the book barn in Niantic, Connecticut. 5 buildings full of used books. But I wouldn't want to go to the book barn in Niantic, Connecticut without Jason and Mark. I would want to go with them. This is very confusing, Cold War. But anyway, that was my trip to the Prattle. A bunch of stuff here that I'm going to love to dig into. The Victorian Country House. Let's see here. A biography of Samuel Pepys. A Few Acres of Snow, Robert Leckie on the French and Indian Wars. We have the Battles of the American Revolution. We have The Death of King Arthur in a new translation, a very old poem in a very new translation. We have 2 great anthologies, Writing New York and American Sea Writing. Let's see here. We have Forgotten Bookmarks, a book entirely dedicated to the stuff you find in books. And finally, One Writer's Beginnings in a mass market paperback. So not a bad book haul as far as the Prattle goes. It's fewer books than what Jason got. But I'm compensating for that because I'm trying to make the peace. I'm trying to do that. And I want peace in the same way that every American has ever wanted peace, exclusively and only on my own terms. So I'm going to wrap this up, but you can expect future mail hauls, book hauls. I'm pretty sure of that. The fighting spirit is up over there in the west coast of Ireland. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.